Hi, my name is Femi, and I'll be doing the basic question for the quideo chapters 12 through 14. So, the drug AZT was the first drug that seemed effective in delaying the onset of AIDS. Evidence for AZT's effectiveness came from a large randomized comparative experiment. The subjects were 1,300 volunteers who were infected with HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, but did not yet have AIDS. The study assigned 435 of the subjects at random to take 500 milligrams of AZT each day, and another 435 to take a placebo. The others were assigned to a third treatment, a higher dose of AZT. We will only compare these two groups. At the end of the study, 38 placebo subjects and 17 of the AZT subjects had developed AIDS. We want to test the claim that taking AZT lowers the proportion of infecting people who develop AIDS in a given period of time. So, A says state hypothesis and check that you can safely use the Z procedure. So, we need to set up a null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis. So, I have P1 and P2. P1 is the proportion of patients that develop AIDS without AZT. And P2 is the proportion of patients that develop AIDS with AZT. So basically that take AZT. So my null is that both the proportions are equal to each other. So people that take AZT and people that don't take AZT have the same probability of developing AIDS. My alternative, however, says that people that don't take the AZT will have a higher probability of developing AIDS compared to the people that do take the AZT. So, and we move on to our assumptions. So, SRS, not really an assumption, so it already tells us that they were randomly, the study assigned 435 of the subjects at random, so it's an SRS. And our number is more than 30, because there's 435 in each sample. And yes, they are independent. Also, we need to check if the number times the probability is greater than or equal to 10. Also, if the number times the Q is greater than or equal to 10. The Q is basically 1 minus the P. So, as you can see, I did my P1 and also my P2, and they all checked out to be greater than or equal to 10. Moving on. B. How significant is the evidence that AZT is effective? So for this we'll use a two proportion Z test, because there's two probabilities, we have to use the two proportion Z test. So our P hat, our first P hat minus the second P hat over the square root of P1 times Q1 over N1 plus P2 times Q2 over N2. So when we plug in our values, and I got the p-values by dividing the number of people that developed AIDS and divided that by the sample size, which is 435. So after you plug those into your value, you get a z-score of 2.25. So this z-score doesn't really mean anything until you look at the z-score chart. So 2.25 equals 0.9878. But since we're looking for greater than, since we want the right side of the chart, we have to do 1 minus the probability that we got, which would equal 0.0122. So we can conclude this by saying we reject the null hypothesis. Our p-value, which is 0.0122, is less than our alpha value, which was 0.05. C. The experiment was double-blind. Explain what this means. So all this means is that both the patients and the researchers didn't know who got the AZT and who got the placebo. So there couldn't be any bias included in this because no one knew. The patients and the researchers had no idea if they got the placebo or the AZT. Thank you.